Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that is, well, it's difficult, but it's absolutely crucial. We're going to be looking at research that really forces us to confront some of our deepest assumptions about who can be a perpetrator of child sexual abuse, and it reveals a hidden side to this truly devastating crime.
So let's start with a question. When you hear that phrase, child sexual predator, what's the image that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably a pretty specific picture, one that's been shaped by the media and everything we've been told. But what if that picture is incomplete? The research we're digging into today shows that the reality is way more complex, and a lot of times it's hidden in plain sight.
Okay, take a look at this number. According to the official statistics from 12 different countries, just 2.2% of reported sexual offenses were committed by women. Now, on the surface, that figure seems to back up all our conventional ideas, right?
But when researchers did something different, when they looked at surveys where victims themselves reported what happened to them, the story changes dramatically. They found that the rate of abuse by female perpetrators jumps to nearly 12%. That's almost 6 times higher. This huge gap tells us one thing for sure. The official data is not catching the whole story, not even close. So why? Why is there such a massive discrepancy? Well, the research points right back at our own blind spots. Think about it. Our societal view of women as being inherently nurturing and caring can make it harder for victims to even recognize what's happening to them. It makes it harder for them to report it, and maybe even harder for authorities to believe them when they do. The point here isn't that abuse by women is more common, it's that it's far, far more hidden.
So to really get a handle on how this hidden abuse actually happens, researchers have identified a very specific blueprint that predators use. It's called sexual grooming, and it's not a single action. It's a deliberate, manipulative process. Let's break down exactly how it works.
At its absolute core, grooming is a calculated manipulation. It's a series of intentional steps that are designed to do a few things: break down a child's defenses, earn their complete trust, and slowly normalize the unthinkable, all while making sure they stay silent.
This whole process is often broken down into this 5-stage blueprint. It's known as the sexual grooming model, or SGM. We're going to use this exact model to look at 2 very different profiles of female perpetrators that the researchers identified.
First up, we've got a profile the researchers call the teacher lover. As the name suggests, this type involves an educator who abuses their position of trust and power over a student. So stage 1 starts with targeting. An educator is in this unique position, right? They can see students' vulnerabilities day in and day out. Maybe a lack of confidence, a tough home life, or just a kid who's craving attention. And they can pinpoint who is most susceptible to their influence. And just think about how the very structure of a school can be exploited. Getting access to a student doesn't look suspicious at all. It's just part of the job. Tutoring, after-school clubs, field trips, these can all become tools for isolation, and often with the full, unsuspecting support of the parents, who just see a dedicated teacher. This is where trust gets turned into a weapon. The perpetrator uses their authority to give special attention, praise, extra privileges. For a student who feels overlooked or invisible, this kind of attention can feel incredibly powerful. It creates this special relationship that feels good, that feels validating.
Now we get to the part where the boundaries are just systemically erased, little by little. It might start with conversations that become more and more personal, and then sexual. Physical contact escalates from something casual, like a pat on the back, to something much more intimate. And the whole time, the abuse is being reframed as the secret, romantic, and consensual relationship, which completely confuses the victim.
So once the abuse has actually started, the game changes. It's all about maintaining control and ensuring silence. And this is done with a mix of affection, making the student feel responsible for keeping their secret, and of course, threats. The power to control grades, for example, becomes a massive tool for coercion. Okay, so let's take that same 5-stage model and apply it now to a vastly different and honestly a much more brutal context: the world of sex trafficking. In this profile, victim selection is on another level. It is predatory. Traffickers are actively looking for minors in crisis, kids who have run away, are homeless, or are struggling with addiction. They're not just looking for vulnerability, they're looking for pure desperation. They might find their victims online or in places like shelters. But unlike the teacher, this stage moves fast, really fast, straight to total isolation. The trafficker systematically cuts the victim off from every single person in their support network, sometimes even creating a whole new identity for them to completely erase their past. Now, this is where the female trafficker really uses those gender stereotypes to her advantage. She presents herself as a caring, trustworthy older sister or even a mother figure. She's not offering praise, she's offering survival, food, a place to stay, safety. But these gifts aren't free. They build an emotional bond, sure, but they also create a crushing sense of. Yeah, so the desensitization here, there's nothing gradual or subtle about it. It is shocking and it is direct. The goal is to quickly normalize commercial sexual exploitation. This is done by exposing them to pornography and explicit talk, often using drugs and even male accomplices to facilitate the first acts of abuse.
And the final stage, maintenance. In this world, it's about total, brutal control. It's a constant cycle of psychological manipulation, piling on the shame and the guilt, combined with the nonstop threat of violence, blackmail, and physical abuse, all to make sure the victim stays trapped and does what they're told. Okay, so after walking through these two really harrowing blueprints for abuse, you have to ask, right? What do we do with this knowledge? How do we take this awareness and turn it into actual prevention?
Well, the research lays out a pretty clear path forward, and it has a lot of different parts. It has to start with just shattering the stereotype that only men can be perpetrators. From there, we need concrete actions, educating parents and caregivers, creating crystal clear rules for contact between adults and students, empowering at-risk youth so they can spot these recruitment tactics, and training professionals to recognize these specific warning signs. And this quote from the researchers really just hits the nail on the head. The goal here isn't to create fear. It's not to make us suspicious of every normal, caring relationship. It's to cultivate vigilance. By understanding that these grooming tactics exist and that they can be used by anyone, regardless of gender, we become so much better equipped to see the warning signs. So the final question isn't just about whether we can protect the vulnerable. It's whether we're willing to look for danger where we least expect it.